All right, welcome back to the Roast It Yourself podcast brought to you by Coffee Bean Corral and Current Crop Roasting Shop. I'm Stephen Burnett with Coffee Bean Corral in Jackson, Mississippi. And with me is Catherine Mansell, certified Q grader and director of Current Crop Roasting Shop in New Orleans, Louisiana. How are you, Catherine?
It's hot and humid. It's horrible.
Horrible,
no,
hot,
I'm kidding.
horrible, hot and humid.
Everything's going well.
Very good, very good. Thank you for mixing it up a little bit. We're too positive around here.
Right.
That's awesome. Well, each week we set aside 10-ish minutes to field questions from home coffee roasters and professionals alike about roasting, tasting, and most importantly, enjoying coffee. Send your questions to questions@riypod.com. That's questions@riypod.com to get a nice shout out from us in an upcoming episode and, of course, get your question answered. Now, before we dive into today's question, I want to talk about one of my favorite things that Current Crop Roasting Shop has to offer at the Coffee Fest in NOLA Coffee Fest. I got to exhibit this at our booth, and I had so much fun doing it all day, and that is the Aillio Bullet roaster.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that roaster, Catherine.
It sort of changes the game. It really does. We've had FreshRoast, Gin Cafes, Be More as hot tops since the beginning of time, it seems like, at Coffee Bean Corral. And we really wanted to reach out and try to do something a little bit different. So when we finally were able to be added as another North American distributor, then it got really fun because then we had to learn how to use the roaster. I'm a note taker to my core. I still have a notebook that I carry around with me, and when I'm roasting, I'm still taking notes with a pencil to paper.
Old school.
Right. Yeah. So the software system was something I was pretty intimidated about at first, but you get access to Roast World, which has an online community of people that are sharing profiles, talking about their roaster, talking about what works, what doesn't work, how to fix it, how to troubleshoot things. So what I did is I went and found, thank goodness Coffee Bean Corral is on there when you're choosing your beans that you're going to roast. So I chose the bean that I was going to roast and then looked around to see who else had roasted it. You can mark your profile as private or public. If it's public, other people have access to it and can learn from it, which I thought was incredibly beneficial because not really knowing too much about it, I dove into Scott Rao's book and kind of got a basic understanding of what I was looking at. But really, I tried to download a few different profiles to see which one worked. Of course, cupped it afterwards, wrote my notes on that. But I nailed a profile on some of the cold brew that we do. And now I get to use that profile every time, and it works the exact same way every single time. And you can roast back to back to back. Now, the preheat, your first roast of the day is going to be between 20 and 25 minutes. That's just something that's normal that happens. But after that, you're ready to go. Yeah.
And that roaster represents is a great example of where we see ourselves in the coffee roasters marketplace, where we're taking people from their just interest in coffee roasting all the way into, okay, now I'm ready to start a business.
Right.
Now I'm ready to start selling coffee online, selling coffee at my farmer's market or selling coffee to local grocery stores. We want to carry people through the kind of uncertain and so the small beginnings aspect and into their business. And so this is a great transition piece because even if, say, I was talking to somebody on the phone today about this roaster and I said it's a kilo, you go back to back, it's a workhorse. But if your business explodes and you need something in the 10, 15 kilo range in a couple of years, you can still keep this roaster and sample with it.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to use 5 pounds of coffee for any sample. Some of these huge roasters have that really high minimum.
Right.
And so this roaster, you can put in, 200 grams of coffee, roast it, sample it, see if you like it, tweak it. Yeah. So I just love the partnership because it's a great example of what we want to do, what we want to be in the coffee marketplace. So, okay, so let's get to our question of the week. This week's question comes from a listener, Dale. Howdy, Dale.
Hey,
How's
Dale.
it going? Thanks for the question. It says, I have an SR800, that's a FreshRoast SR800 roaster that I recently added an extension to. My concern is that roasting temp is hitting 500 plus degrees at a fan speed of 8 and a heat at 2. This happens early in the stages of the roast development. About 3 minutes into the roast, does the high heat present a problem so early with the final roast? Does it have something to do with the extension tube? Please advise. Dale. Well, thanks for the question, Dale. Interesting one. Because I feel like this is a very technical one, and I appreciate the detail that you put in the question. There's still questions I have before we could give a solid answer, but we can do our best in general. What do you think, Catherine?
Well, my first question would be, how long have you had the roaster in general? Are you running the cool down phase after every single roast? Are you letting the roaster completely cool down before you start it up again? Fresh roasts are really not meant for back-to-back or any sort of commercial use in any way. So anytime you're overworking the roaster, it can start to get really hot. But if this is just happening with the extension tube, still the base needs to sort of be looked at. That would be the first thing that I would tackle.
I would think so. And I mean, what's odd about it is that this happened apparently when you added the extension tube. So my question would be, did you also increase the capacity, or did you increase the amount of coffee being roasted in that situation? Because if you increase the amount of coffee in the with the extension tube, you can trap more heat and drive the temperature up. But the other thing is, this is a $280 roaster, which is nothing to sneeze at for most people. But as far as roasters go, is pretty inexpensive. And we do roasting classes at Current Crop where we use these roasters. And if you go by the temperature displayed on the unit, you might have 100-degree difference between one roaster and another, all doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, same amount of coffee, same transitions, everything. And it's because it's not a crazy expensive roaster. And so you've got a temperature reading mechanism that may not be calibrated perfectly.
Right.
So the 500 may not really be 500. But the main way to test this, the main way to know if it's a problem, is when are you hitting first crack?
Right.
If it's 500 degrees in that chamber from the get-go, you're going to hit first crack in like 3.5, 4 minutes, at best.
Yeah,
probably sooner than that, actually. If you're still hitting first crack in these coffees at 6, 7, 8 minutes, it's probably not actually 500 degrees. You're probably just getting that reading.
Yeah.
I use the FreshRoast thermometer, a little built-in temperature reading, as a guide from roast to roast.
Yeah.
For the same unit. But I don't count on that number being, man, if I took this to a lab, and used really expensive equipment, it would give me the same temperature. I don't look at it for that. I look at it for kind of, is this generally, am I doing the same thing I did last time? Right. Basically.
In the range
of what it was. Yeah, I think that's right. I think if you're still hitting first crack in a reasonable 6, 7, 8 minute range, you're probably not at 500 degrees.
Yeah.
If you've changed other variables, like added more coffee when you added the extension tube, that's something to consider as well. And if it's an older unit, it may just be on the fritz. That does happen after several years of use, or even less if you're using it, or if you're overusing it, like you said. And a lot of people get into roasting and do a little bit, and then they share it, and everyone loves it, and they find themselves running a small commercial roaster out of their kitchen, and staying up late sweating. We've all been there. So if you're overworking it, that could be part of it, but it may not even be an accurate reading. You might be totally fine. So I would want to know, when are you hitting first crack, and is your coffee still good? Because if it's crazy hot, you're hitting first crack very early, and your coffee's not good, that's a problem. Yeah. But outside of that, I think I would just do a little bit more looking into that. Yeah. But yeah, so Dale, hopefully that's a helpful answer to the question, and hope everyone has benefited from that. But let's get into our next little thing here, which is talking about our wholesale program, because we have a wholesale program.
Yes.
Now, we actually share this program between Current Crop and Coffee Bean Corral. It's called the Rancher Wholesale program. And if you're lucky enough to live in the New Orleans area, you get extra perks. Yeah. Just for being close to Catherine. That's true. Just for being in proximity. Because they will hand deliver coffee to you. They will day of, sometimes if they can spare the people, they'll bring coffee that you need. They can get any of the coffees in our inventory up here for your wholesale needs. And it is pretty stellar. How is that going for you all down there?
Current crop's going well.
Yeah.
The summer with the heat always sort of drives a little bit less of the folks walking up and down Magazine Street, but the folks who've been coming in every single week come in every single week.
There you go.
Yes.
And if you're not in New Orleans or near within Catherine's driving distance, you can still be part of the Rancher program. So the way that works is on rancherwholesale.com, you can sign up. This is really good for people that spend $3,000 to $4,000 a year in coffee, because then you make back your initial $99 investment, and you get the benefit of the 5% off out of the gate, and free 3-pound samples on every single order you place throughout the year. So if you want to try new coffees or experiment with blending, that's a way to do that for free.
Right.
So it really does, those savings do add up over time. And as you spend more money and your business grows, your savings increase as well. We have a 10% off tier with 2 samples that come free with every order, and a 15% off tier with 3-pound samples. It's hard to say that without three free samples.
Yes.
But if you only hear one word in that, just hear the word free, because that's what you get with these samples.
Right.
But anyway, that's our program to help people that are in the commercial space that need the extra savings, that want to still utilize our massive inventory and do business with us. And we really appreciate y'all. And by the way, every Rancher order ships free.
Oh yeah.
Whether Catherine drives it up to yourself or whether it comes in UPS,
that's right.
50-pound boxes, it ships free. So that's you don't have to worry about a loading dock or a warehouse or a lift gate or any of that mess.
Yeah.
We just bring it to you. We make it easy.
Yeah.
At Coffee Bean Corral with the
Make
Rancher
it very
program.
easy. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, if you'd like to pick up roasting as a new hobby or peruse a wide inventory of coffee roasters and green coffee beans, there are no better places to do that than at coffeebeancorral.com and currentcroproasting.com. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it, which is a lot. And if you did, please leave us a rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. We're excited to watch the Roast It Yourself podcast grow and get more and more questions and get more and more reach, so we can bring coffee roasting and the love of coffee in general to people all around the world.
Yeah.
We can't do that without you. So really appreciate your reviews and your comments on the podcast. Remember, send any questions you have about coffee in general or coffee roasting in particular to questions@riypod.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy roasting.
Happy roasting.